G'day folks, ZiggyD here. Crafting in Path of Exile 2 right now for 0.3 is certainly at its most powerful and possibly right up there with some of the most powerful craftings we've had in Path of Exile in 1 as well. I also think it's more accessible than many of the powerful crafting systems that we've had in Path of Exile 1. It just is a bit initially overwhelming because there's so many little bits. So if you look at kind of like all the essences and the new tiers of currency, and you're looking at the omens from various sources and the abyss crafting, then it does seem like a lot. And there's just kind of like a lot of different bits for a lot of different specific purposes, and you really don't need to engage with all of them at once. So hopefully I can help you sort through a couple of those things to find just how to dip your toes into entry-level crafting with this new system, because even at the very basic, very cheap end of things, just crafting some gear to use yourself has never been more powerful and never been more available. So I'll try and break things down for you folks in a way that's as easy to understand as possible, with a couple of little examples here that you can apply to many different things. The first thing is you have these greater versions of currencies, so this middle row here. Most notably the Greater Orb of Transmutation and Greater Orb of Augmentation. Now these act the same as the regular base versions of these currency, except that they have a minimum modifier level. So these ones have a level of 55 as their minimum level. That means anything below that point, so the sorts of modifiers that would normally roll on low level items ranging from 1 to 54, then they cannot be rolled by these currencies. Now that is unfortunately a little bit difficult to visualize in game because there's no like item level listing for modifiers, they just have tiers. But we do have handy sites like Craft of Exile or PWDB that can help you kind of visualize how this works. So using Craft of Exile here, I can show you a little bit more visually how this works. So you can see item level here in this row. And let's take something like maximum mana on rings, for example. So we can see there's a whole bunch of these modifiers, and these ones range from item level 1 all the way to item level 77. Now, the ring that I'm using as an example here is item level 75, which means it cannot roll the item level 77 maximum mana, so this one is unavailable. Now we know the Greater Orb of Transmutation or Augmentation mean that the minimum is 55, so that also cuts out everything including this 53, which means there's only two possibilities of mana. There's 63 and there's 69, which is 125 to 164 maximum mana. So that means if you roll mana, that is the only possibilities of what you can roll. So that cuts out a huge portion of possible modifiers, meaning that the average modifier that you get when you use a transmute or an augmentation like this is just significantly higher. So these are some white rings that I've purchased. These are just level 80 rings that I've purchased with decently rolled implicits. And to do something like that, I just used Path of Exile Trade, of course, set it to my league, and then I just used implicit of each resistance and typed in a minimum amount and did a count of 1 using this count feature here. Normal rarity, so we're looking for ones that we can just craft, and item level 80 is the minimum. And then I'm saying that it has to have like, at least 28 cold resistance for me to consider buying it, for example. So any one of these. So if I search this one, I'm just looking in Exalted Orb prices, there is like 2,500 results for white rings like this available. And with the new trading system, it's easier than ever to just like go and buy crafting bases like this as well. So this was a huge hurdle in the past for crafting, but this has never been easier. And sometimes when you do this, I did this earlier and I came across someone who had an entire stash tab full of them, like this person. In fact, just like this person. So I can say, yeah, I want this, but oh, like cool. Oh, there's a 30 resistance one. That's great. I'll get that as well. And so you can just buy out a whole bunch of these. So it's never been easier to do stuff like that. The reason why I've picked rings as my starting example, and this process really works for anything, it's just so it happens that Jewellery has a lot of modifiers that cap out at a very low level. A lot of these modifiers on rings cap out at like level 75. Some things like life cap out at really low levels. And what you can actually roll at like that level 60 range is generally considered pretty good. Like a 35 tri-res ring, for example, with 90 life is a pretty good ring. And that is easy to get with very low level stuff. So with that minimum level 55, you can hit some pretty good results there. And you can see this in action with the Greater Orbs of Transmutation and Augmentation, just like how well rolled every single modifier you put on a ring is. It's interesting that you can actually get life with the transmutes, and I've been puzzling over this one. So both PWDB lists life at 54, and Craft of Exile lifts life at 44. I don't know which one is correct, but either way, neither of those should be rollable with 55 minimum modifier level, which to me suggests that it caps at the tier 1 modifier, right? Like every time I roll life, it seems to be tier 1 with these, which is insane. So anytime you roll life with a transmute, with a greater transmute or greater augmentation, and these things are cheap as chips, really common, you are getting a tier 1 life roll, right? Just guaranteed like that. So we can just go through and spam all these things. And you should just like set white rings that you want on your filter as well. And you can go ahead and do this as you find them, as you pick them up. So let's just go ahead and augment all of these as well. This is generally going to be the process for us. So we have this one here. That one rolled dexterity. I would prefer a resist, but a high attribute can also be quite good. I did accidentally, when I was buying from that person there, I did accidentally buy some low level ones. So it's a good idea when impulse buying to double check the item level. Let that be a lesson. These ones are leveling gear. So you can craft from white like this, and then I'll go through the rest of the process here in a moment as well, and get yourself some decent modified tiers just with these greater augments and greater transmutations. Those alone are a huge thing. But of course, the other approach is to, if you want to craft a ring for yourself or any other item for yourself, is to buy a magic item, a blue item, with modifiers that you want. Now, let's say that's going to be something like life and a resist. I've set up a search here to be able to get those for like 1 to 2 exalts, just by putting in an amount of life as a stat filter, setting it to magic rings. I don't need to set the item level for this because we're doing that by what we're looking for anyway. And I've made sure that they will have a resistance implicit. There's some kind of weirdnesses with the search that made me have to do this. So I've got the implicit resistances in just any one of those. And then I've done this thing called weighted sum, where I just give a point value to resist, and I just say each resist is worth 1 and chaos resist is worth 2. I could probably do all resistance as well. And then I just tinkered with this number until I got kind of like prices that were pretty good. So searching just for magic rings like this. So we got like, here's a chaos ring with life and a resist. So we just buy this for 1 exalt, just avoid any corrupted ones so that we can actually craft them. And then these ones kind of settle into about 2 exalts and then go up. So I'd buy the cheaper ones and maybe just tinker with the numbers, lower these slightly if I need to. But of course, that's life and resist. That's the most common one. You could get really cheap things like this, for example. For 1 exalt, it's just like tier 1 physical and fire resist. Or let's say you're a mana stacking build and you want that mana int. Or maybe you're playing an Amazon and you want accuracy and you need lots of chaos resist. Or you're doing a real mana stacker and you want lots of mana regen. Any of these would be valid crafting options. So then that goes into the next part of the new crafting systems, which is the overhauled essences. Essences were pretty bad prior to this patch. They are fantastic now. Essences come down in 3 categories. It's easiest to look in the currency exchange here. You've got, we can just ignore these are for leveling. We've got the regular essences here, and these act as a regal, so they add a modifier to a magic item like this and turn it into a rare. And these just guarantee a specific affix, right? So if we're looking at crafting items like this that have life and a resistance, we just probably want to add an extra resistance, especially because that's what tends to be available here. So we'd probably just choose something like chaos resistance, but even if you just wanted cold resistance or something, you could do that as well. So these ones just guarantee literally the exact modifier that they say. So this will add 8 to 11 chaos resistance to armor, belt, or jewelry. So the Essence of Ruin here. And I try to make sure that everything I did for these examples is quite cheap. Essence of Ruins are like 4 exalts. Things like these other ones will be even cheaper. So an Essence of Thawing for cold resistance, for example, is only 2 exalts. So this is already better than what we could do in the past, but we can just take these guys and turn them into life with a good resist and a good chaos res as well. The other important essences are the perfect essences. And these, I just wanted to give you one example of these. These are starting to dip into like the middle tier crafting, because these can be a little bit more expensive, but what the power level of what they have and just being aware of their existence and how they work is really important. So I've got like a really trash crossbow here right now. It's like 380 DPS with garbage suffixes pretty much. So I got these guys for like 1 exalt. So this was 1 exalt, this one was 1 chaos. So this is I kept that one. It's just got like physical resistance prefixes and then just garbage suffixes, right? Now an Essence of Battle adds +6 to 2-hand weapons, +6 to all level of attack skills, right? It's a 2-hand weapon, just guaranteed. But these perfect ones act differently to the regal ones, so that this doesn't have to be a magic item. It removes a random modifier and then augments the guaranteed modifier that's listed there. Now what's really interesting about this is if you have an item that's full, So this one has 6 affixes. We can just double check. So we got 3 prefixes and 3 suffixes. So this one is full. You couldn't really, in theory, do anything more to this. But because this removes a random modifier and adds +6, here's a very important note. If we go to crossbows and look at the prefixes and suffixes, +6 or plus projectile skills is a suffix, right? It is only legally ever allowed to be a suffix. It can never be a prefix. Now, what does that mean? That means this thing needs to remove a suffix in order to add itself. It can't remove a prefix ever. So we don't want it to touch the prefixes because it's got like physical damage stuff that we want, right? I bought this specifically because it had decent physical modifiers and absolute garbage suffixes that I don't care about, right? So in order to add that suffix, it can't remove a prefix and add that suffix because then you'd end up with an item that had 2 prefixes and 4 suffixes, which is illegal, right? You can't do that. So it will guarantee remove a suffix and add +6, like just like that, right? So that is just another thing, just by itself, that is just extremely wild. And I, you know, have just made an upgrade for, so the base costs 1 Exalt, and then it's got +6 gems. How much of a damage upgrade is this without even like, it's not even quality or anything. Yeah, let me add some quality to it. There we go. And apparently my explosive grenade is 6,400. That is 12,300. I just doubled my damage with that one. So the perfect essence, of course, was the expensive part of that equation. Those guys do cost a little bit because they're like one of the most popular examples of this. So those guys are like 35 exalts. It's really powerful, especially just when you consider when you can reliably know what affix it's going to remove and add. So you can do the same sort of things with staves and wands here as well, with the sorcery ones. Another good one is the perfect essence of the body for percentage increased life. Even in some cases, if you have like, let's say life and then some other garbage prefixes, you can take like that 1 in 3 gamble that you remove one of the other garbage prefixes and add % life along with your flat life. So you can end up with like, you know, a helmet with 120 flat life and 10% increased life, for example. Lots of good stuff to do with the essences there. The next part of the equation is the new Abyss crafting, and Abyss is likely going core, and the crafting for it is very powerful. And this allows you to add a modifier that you can then go and unveil and take a choice of 1 of 3. And this has some interesting overlaps with the essences as well, in that you can guarantee prefix or suffixes with omens. So that's the next part of the equation. So omens allow you to kind of force certain things to happen. So a good example of this is if I were to use a preserved jawbone here, which desecrates a rare weapon or armor, it adds 1 modifier. And if I just did this to this crossbow, which has an open suffix, it would just add a suffix guaranteed, right? Because that's where there's space. But if I did it to this one, it would randomly remove any one of these modifiers and then add the affix. Now, a pretty interesting thing that I can do, and this is a slight gamble, is I can take one of these omens and say, okay, so Dextral Necromancy means that Desecration will add only suffix modifiers. It only says add, but in order to add one, it would first have to remove. The same thing that happened with the Essence, right? So, if I desecrated this crossbow here, it would have to remove a suffix if I used this omen. So if I activated this omen, it will have to remove a suffix in order to place a suffix on there. Now that means there's a 1 in 3 chance that I hit the attack skills, which would be bad, obviously. But I also have a 2 in 3 chance of hitting the life or the mana per enemy hit or killed. So those garbage affixes there. So this is a pretty powerful and fairly deterministic gamble. We know the exact odds we have, and we know the exact behavior of what's going to occur. I did, of course, hit. I did, of course, hit that one. We'll go and unveil that one in the Well of Souls here. A cool part of this, and these omens are really cheap as well. A cool part of this is that we can actually kind of keep redoing this process if we want to. So we'll unveil this now and see what we get. And we did get attack speed, which is kind of what I was hoping for. So now we have our attack speed one, not +6, not as good as what we had before. I feel like lots of previous crafting would kind of lock you in once you do something like this, and certainly you can't just like easily redesecrate an already desecrated items. There are expensive ways to remove it, but something like a Perfect Essence, again, it still has to follow the same rules, right? There are 3 suffixes, there's 3 prefixes. So if we use another Perfect Essence of Battle, it will remove a prefix, and it can remove that attack speed, so that we've got that, we're doing that 1 in 3 again. The odds are certainly in our favor there, though. I did, of course, hit the attack speed again, because when you make a video, you're cursed. But why not? Let's try again. So we'll use that Dextral Necromancy once more. And we'll desecrate and see if we remove that attack skills again. Okay, there we go. All right. Not fully cursed, at least. Just a little bit cursed. Economically poor example, because I should have bought a slightly more expensive, like higher Fizz DPS base. But the important thing is the process. Show you how the process works here. I did not get attack speed this time around, but we could indeed try and continue that process. So you can use any other essence that forces you to replace suffixes. And that's an important note as well, is that there are you can stack essence modifiers together now as well. Like if we did use a different essence that replaced a suffix, we could do that again and either replace the Abyss modifier or replace the attack skills or replace the 5 life per enemy hit. And we can kind of keep going with those until we stack up some suffixes that we like. Now, most of the time as entry level, you're just going to do one of these things, right? You're just going to add +6, or you're just going to do a guaranteed desecrate and see if you get something good. And maybe if it doesn't work, you'll re-roll it with one of the cheaper essence options to just get something useful. And it's just like a way to upgrade an item, right? We had 3 good prefixes and we have a way to upgrade an item. I actually don't mind this life conversion for grenades. Grenades are expensive. I'll settle for this for now. So we'll go back to our earlier ring crafting example. Yeah, this can work for anything again, just rings being a nice example for those greater orbs of transmutation and augmentation. And certainly if you use greater exalts as well, you know that you're going to get a decently rolled random affix. It's going to be random, but the quality of that modifier will be significantly higher. Now there's one more thing I want to introduce here with this craft. So we use this ring right here. So using these omens, again, we can force another suffix, right? Now we could gamble a little bit and use some exalts and just see if we fill up the prefixes and leave the suffix open. That's an option, but these guys are really cheap, especially these ones. They're like 1 exalt or something. So we can do this, and then we can take one of these guys here, which these are also cheap. These force specific modifiers, Amenamu, Kurgle, or Ulaman. I would really like them to be able to show you what possibilities exist for these in game. Because like without knowing what these do, it's kind of just like, it's just more confusing mess, right? But the really important thing here is that these guys, let's go to rings. These guys have specific modifiers that include cold and chaos, fire and chaos, lightning and chaos resist. And you can actually just almost guarantee you're going to see one of those. At least a very good chance here. So we'll guarantee a random Kurgle modifier. Right, so it'll give you at least 1 Kurgle modifier. We know we get 3 desecrated modifiers when we put this on this ring. So that can be, 2 of these can be from this list of normal modifiers that we don't already have. So we already have like a resist and chaos res, right? So chance of getting all res, lightning res, any of the attributes, and then a couple, you know, kind of garbage modifiers. Well, not rarity, rarity's great. And then 1 from this list that has to be Kurgle. Now, if we look at the list of Kurgle modifiers, for example, it's Dex and Int, actually pretty good. Cold and Chaos Res, great. Cooldown recovery rate, great. Exposure effect, great. Literally every single one of those modifiers are good for my build, right? So fantastic. I'll choose Kurgle. But if you wanted a specific resist, let's say you wanted one of the other ones, you might choose Amenamu because you want fire resist, for example. I'm happy with Cold and Chaos Res. This thing will be a lot of cold res in the end, a lot of lightning, and a lot of chaos res, and that's great. So I'll take this Kurgle modifier here and I'll activate that. So now these omens are both active and forcing a certain thing to occur. And that is when we use the preserved collarbone. And these are there's always like one expensive step in any sort of like approaching mid-tier crafting. And the preserved collarbone is that. These guys cost, let's see. These guys cost around 22 exalts. There is no way we could guarantee anything kind of this good previously. So I'll take that preserved collarbone now and it will force on a suffix. So we have our suffix there. Now we get the fun part of getting to see whether we got chaos res or cooldown recovery or any of those. Oops. And I'm happy with any of those options ultimately. I might as well do one of the other ones here as well. So I'll just do let's see what the other modifiers are. So Amenamu has strength int, strength dex, skill effect duration, remnant collection, life leech, and of course fire and chaos res. They all have one of those. And Ulaman has lightning and chaos res and skill speed. Is that all Ulaman has? That's crazy. Okay, we'll do Ulaman. That's crazy. That's actually really good. I'll do that. That's skill speed. It's just attack speed. We'll take that. I'll do this other ring here while we're at it. So there's our guaranteed suffix from the sinistral, the dextral necromancy. These are really common as well. You'll find lots of these. And the omen of the sovereign there. So let's unveil this first one. And we got the Dex and Int was the combined modifier. We also got some other options like recover mana on kill. That one's actually quite good too. Ooh, slightly tough choice there. Recover mana on kill is fantastic for grenade builds. And many builds, actually. Like, remember, this was a premium jewel modifier in the past for 2%. I think I will take that recover mana on kill for me, personally. And then we'll do the second ring. And we got the lightning and chaos res, or skill speed. Slightly tough choice, but more universally valuable is the lightning and chaos res. And I rolled a decent amount there, too. It actually rolled another one of the like hybrid attributes as well. Now that's like pretty much done. We could, if we're like really happy with the results and it makes economic sense to do so, we could use some like greater exalts. I'm broke now. Or we can just use some regular exalts to fill those out now with some additional prefixes. So we can take my ring, and I'm pretty happy with like any of the possibilities for the prefixes. Like we get some evasion, great. If I get a little bit of physical damage, phenomenal. Of course, it doesn't end there. There is more we can do. There are fancier omens you can take on. Some extra elemental damage and some extra accuracy. There we go, can't complain. Pretty nice ring. Like an example, if I wanted to continue kind of pushing something like that is, let's say I was a mana stacking build, our rings have perfect essence of the mind, for example, so I could try and get increased maximum mana there. And what if I, which is hard to get, I could do the 1 in 3, like gamble, to replace either the accuracy or cold now, and keep the life and add the percentage mana. So just to recap, we have like the greater essences and augments and greater exalts and things like that. Just adding high tier modifiers guaranteed, right? Then we have essences to guarantee a third modifier. And that means you can buy blue items with 2 affixes that you like, or pick up and craft with greater essences and greater augments and transmutations until you get something decent, and then use those essences to get 3 good modifiers in an item. That's half of the way there already. Then you can use Desecration to have a really good chance of getting another good affix, and you can use these Dextral Necromancies or Sinistral Necromancy omens to force it to either be a prefix or suffix, so that you can get the exact thing that you want to happen. And that can include if you have a full set of affixes replacing a modifier where you know what it's going to replace. That way you can take odds stacked in your favor gambles, or even in some cases not a gamble at all. So maybe there are some better ways. Maybe just showing more examples would help kind of people get into crafting, because I really want as many people as possible to try crafting, because I've heard so many people telling me like, hey, I've actually finally done something with crafting this league and it's amazing. Look at this item I made, and it was like super cheap, and I found this craft that I could do, and I've just been able to like improve my own gear. People are wearing like all their own crafted gear right now. It's so good. So hopefully this helps at least some of you get into that. If not, tell me what you need. What do you need to kind of like make it a little bit more understandable, or examples or things like that. But I hope this is at least a good start for some of you to get into crafting. I'm very enthused about it. I do think they can clean it up a little bit, make it a bit less confusing, put more information in game, and it will be phenomenal. But pretty exciting development for 0.3 to be sure. Anyway, that's it for now. I'm ZiggyD, and thanks for watching.